All right, guys. I appreciate you coming on.
It's our pleasure.
Mike, Dave, thank you very much. Atlantic PT. I've heard a lot of great things about you guys from your good friend Bosch.
Tommy Bosch.
Yeah, he's an animal, that guy. I just met him over the last year. Seems like a really good dude.
Good stories about that guy.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Tommy White has spoke very highly of you guys, and did a little research myself, and I appreciate you guys coming on. I know you're busy. Coaching tonight right before you came over.
Yeah, came from a Little League baseball game.
So, little homework. This podcast really is about spotlighting the local business owners. Guys like yourself who have come up locally. You're both TR guys. You now live in Wall. You have grown over the last 20 years together as brothers, which is really impressive in itself, to 29 total locations. Cheers to you guys, dude. That's really impressive. That's hard to do. And again, I really appreciate you guys taking your time. So I want to lead with whoever wants to answer this. How'd this all get started? I know you and I briefly spoke about your injury. If you want to kick it off with that.
Yeah, the PT for me, I'm a physical therapist. I got into it, tore my ACL playing basketball in college, had the surgery, went to PT. Day one, I knew that was going to be my career. And then, get through grad school, come out, work on a job for a couple of years for a great boss. Kind of knew I wanted to go out on my own, but had no idea how. And Dave, by then, had come out of school. He was working his first job. And in that role, he was billing and getting authorizations for, medical services. So he was getting that experience while I was getting clinical experience. And then one day we just kind of talked about it and like, wait a second, I could do the PT. You could figure out how to get us paid for it. And
what went through your mind at that point, right? Because I'm always trying to pull nuggets out of the people I'm interviewing. What went through your mind and what gave you the confidence to go and do that? Because I think so many people, if they just get 50 cents more, they stay in this grind that's really, really difficult. To work for people is hard.
Yeah.
You don't have the same flexibility. As a coach and somebody who has 29 locations, not that you guys don't work extremely hard, but if you want to go see your son's practice or your daughter's practice, you're able to go do that as a business owner. Working for somebody you don't. What gave you the confidence and the faith to go and jump into this?
what did you say, Pops?
Yeah, talk about our grandfather. Well, our grandfather is, he was kind of our inspiration, I guess, all growing up. So our grandfather had a business in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Actually, his father started a business in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
In 1910.
1910.
Damn.
And two of our uncles still run that business today.
Really? That
Yeah.
many generations later?
112 years.
Yeah, our great grandfather ran it. Then
What is the business? We got to give him a shout out.
It's called Maffey's Lock and Safe Company.
Wow.
And so we used to spend a lot of summers down in Long Beach Island at Pop's Beach House.
That was your grandfather.
That was our grandfather. And he just always talked about work being the joy of life.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked his ass off. And so he
But
was
he loved
always,
what he did.
He did.
I just remember he had these hands that were like gloves. They started the company they were grinding knives, pulling a horse and buggy down the streets of Elizabeth. And so he always knew how to grind knives, but then he went to locksmith, then he went to high-tech security, and that business has evolved. But I just always remember our grandfather always just working.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time with him at his place down in LBI.
Is Pop still alive?
In the summer, no, he passed away.
He was 96 years old, though, when he passed away.
About 3
Still
years ago.
strong as hell with those big ass paws.
Yeah, but big mitts.
Yeah.
That's great though.
So I would say that was our inspiration. Like Pop had a business. Pop used to work so hard. We can do it. And the stars kind of aligned. He was working PT, opened a couple clinics for his old boss, and I knew some medical billing. I thought I did. I thought I knew medical billing.
always
And I thought I knew accounting, right? And so we said, why don't we give this a shot? And we found a location that worked well. It was right next to an orthopedic group. So we kind of started there, and it worked great. And
So
we were off and
we were
running.
both single. I'm, not married
Yeah.
at the time. No kids. No.
A little bit more freedom.
We could take a swing.
Yeah.
And I think squirreled away a couple dollars. Still living like we lived in college.
Yeah. PBJs,
So, yeah.
ramen noodles. When you
Beer
say
money.
a couple dollars, because I want people who are watching to say, all right, what's a couple dollars? What can get me started? How much did you guys have squandered away at the time when you launched something?
We took a loan.
We took a loan for $50,000. Now this is 2001, so
Yeah.
different time, but everything's equivalent. But I expected I wasn't going to be able to get paid for probably 6 months, is what I kind of figured. So I think at that time I had put away maybe $5,000-$6,000, and
Yeah.
I knew that could get me through my living situation and
Sacrificing over here so you can,
yeah.
short-term pain for long-term gain.
And there was definitely times in the beginning where, we had a line of credit lined up that backed up that loan
Yeah, just in case.
just in case, but I think in both of our minds, we didn't want to touch that line of credit. That would have felt like a loss, and it got to the razor's edge of having to tap that line, and we got like a couple payments came in.
It always does, dude.
And we knew nothing about mindset at that point, but I think it somehow, played into it. We just didn't know it. And
So I don't want people to feel, I have severe ADHD, so if I jump around too much, don't get
we'll
mad.
jump with you.
So far, so good.
So you talk about mindset, so again, something else, people need to understand that are going into business that you got to stay focused on that long-term vision. And even when you're having those tough times and you're sitting there going, this bill came in, like right, for me every year, it's like the tax bill. It's like, all right, I've saved for this, but you're like, and you know that you have things coming in. You know that you're running a successful business. Talk about your mindset and how you guys work through those things early on.
Well, then it was
Early on was work.
And Mike and I was still kind of working my other job, so I had some income. He's the one that gave up the income, right? So
More risk.
it was fine for me to not get paid because I had some income, and I honestly, I think I was still living at home at that point in time, so I didn't really have expenses, luckily, right? But it was him, and as soon as we got some money in, we got him a check, and we kind of kept track of like if he was getting paid, how much he should have gotten, right? And then as money kept coming in, okay, let's give Mike a little bit more, let's try and catch up, and then money kept coming in, and it was like, okay, when
You
it
filled the ears.
starting to
Yeah,
come in, and then we finally caught up there, and we got to a point where I had to kind of give up the other job because I was busy, right, and busy here, and then it was like, okay, well at that point we had enough money to pay me that I could give up the other job, and as long as I could make what I was making at the other job, I felt like I was whole, right, and then.
I think at that point in time, neither of us had a clue about even what mindset was.
Yeah.
It was just, it was hard work, and if you got scared about something, that would just work even harder than you didn't even know that you could work that
The
hard.
anxiety just pushes you.
That's kind of how it worked, and I think
fear of failure.
fear of failure was the motivator.
Yeah.
And we're both kind of alphas and athletes, and so like just
Put your head down.
you're not going to lose, so the first time I ever encountered somebody that pushed me to think a little differently was this Pat Croce. I don't know if you ever heard of Pat Croce. He was a PT. He was very successful, opened up a bunch of places, sold them, made a lot of money, and leveraged all that and became a minority owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. And a patient randomly coming to me, was a cameraman for NBA on NBC at the time. He's like, oh, and I was reading Pat Croce's book because we weren't that busy, so he goes, you want to meet that guy? I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
I'd
of
love to
course.
meet that guy. Brings me in, and my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, brings us in. He sets us up. Pat Croce comes off the set because he was now like in the studio for NBA, and he brings him over and he introduces me to Pat Croce, and he's like, this is my PT. Remember my rotator cuff repair? He's the guy who's doing my PT. He owns his own place. Pat Croce's like, what's your goal? I'm like, I don't know. Survive. Survive.
Upgrade from
Survive,
PBJ.
Yeah. He's like, how many visits do you want to have in a week?
Map it out.
I'm like, 100? 100? I don't know. He's like, that's wrong. I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, be specific and anchor to that and focus on it, and you will get that. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he just like buzzed off. And for me, that was the first time I was like,
He didn't have time to tell you anything else.
no,
He was just shooting
no.
the real shit with
but
you.
that
and
was
said, "Do
enough,
it."
you know,
But
like, that
yeah,
was enough
yeah.
just to be like, all right, I need to set a goal and just charge at that goal and not accept anything but that goal, and then you hit it, you know. And
Yeah, mapping goals out are funny, right? Because you could throw out, I want to make $500,000. All right, well, what are the sub goals? How do you get there?
yeah,
Right.
With the duration of time that you allot yourself to get there. So I think that's something a lot of small business owners fail to do because they get caught up in the concept and the look and the feel of whatever their business is, and it's like, well, you need to map out a real business plan.
yeah. I think also something that we've learned as we've kind of dove deeper into mindset and is map the goal out, set the target so you have kind of a destination that you're aiming towards, knowing that, you know, stuff's going to come and you're going to get a little bit knocked off course, but as long as you have a destination, you can arrive there. But don't just like put it out there, but believe it.
Yeah.
And don't kind of write it down and believe you're not going to get there. And I think many of us are guilty of kind of our own self-doubt
Yeah.
that peels us back. But when you kind of like really know that
Immerse
you can do
yourself
that,
in that,
feel
manifest it.
feel what it feels like that I'm there already, it's gonna happen, you know.
I talked about it on the last episode with the young kid Trevor that we mentored, and I talked about The Secret.
Yeah.
Now, people make fun of that book, but at the time, it helped me lose 100 pounds. I was kicked out of high school. I got my GED. I went back, went to finance school, got my investment licenses, and like it completely turned my life around. And I remember the book, you know, talking about simple things like, you know, visualize yourself holding the steering wheel of the car you want to drive. Not that car has ever mattered to me, but
Yeah.
things like that. And I started to
Right.
live in that mindset.
Yep.
And as you grow, you still, like you said, you still run into self-doubt.
Absolutely.
Because you run into different problems that you got to now solve, and your life changes. As you guys both know, you have a good amount of children and wives that work very hard to take care of them, so you guys could run a big business.
Yeah.
And it's hard counterbalance in all that. So just to stay in that feeling of getting to where you want to go, I think is so big. When you talk about a business of your size, right? You have 29 locations. First off, you guys looking to add more?
Yeah. There's a couple more coming on in the next maybe 3 months.
How many more are you looking to bring on?
There'll be 3 more.
3 more by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I'll get into that a little bit more. I'm jumping off track. You guys have how many total employees between staff, PT, OTs?
We're around 200 now.
Yeah, I think about 190.
190. How do you manage something of that size? Again, going back to, you never worked in a corporate setting.
Yeah.
You never worked in a real corporate setting. You know, I think the one good thing about corporate America is if you can go do it for 7 to 10 years and work hard at it and learn some of the infrastructure. How do you manage 190 people?
It's our team.
Yeah, it's a team. I mean, there's 2 parts to it, right? It's the people, right? And then it's the management of the business, right? And for us, I mean, we grew through a lot of it, right?
Explain that though, the management of the business and the people, for someone who may not know.
Right. So we have, if you look at our hierarchy, right, when I say now, within the last 4 or 5 years, we've built out what we would call the executive team. Mike acts as the CEO. I act as like the CFO. We have a COO now. We have a chief clinical officer, CCO. So it's not always been that. You know, for years it was Mike and Dave just kind of doing everything.
Yeah.
And
Takes away from your personal life a lot.
for sure.
And we're not good at everything.
Yeah.
You know, there are people who have strengths that are now sitting in the seat that leverages their strength, and they're way better at that role than Dave or I ever were. And the company has changed as I think the biggest thing for us was delegation, figuring out, letting go a little bit.
Swallowing your ego, right?
Yeah.
You're the owner of the business. I know all.
Right. It's easier if I just do it, you know.
Yeah.
And that was.
Meanwhile, we're butchering it.
And our
And they're sitting there like, all right, this guy thinks he knows.
So true.
Yeah, it's kind of like you get out of the way and you give somebody that opportunity. They feel empowered, and then, like Mike said, you know, they end up doing a better job than what you were doing. But then you can focus more on big picture things too.
And what you're visionaries, and you guys, like you said, you both have different roles, but still, 190 people. I get you have an executive teams. I want to grab deep nuggets, and I'm going to keep coming back to that. Talk about some of the systems and operations that are put in place. Talk about maybe some of the softwares, the CRM. Talk a little bit about that.
You want to talk about like the way the levels are of the staffing, right?
Yeah. So a good example is yesterday we had a quarterly leadership meeting. So the leadership meeting is going to have each individual location has a clinical director. It's going to be a PT or an OT maybe, who runs that center. All of them are in the room or virtual. The head of billing and the head of marketing and physician liaisons and the HR director and the controller and everybody who's in a position of lead throughout the company. We all come together quarterly. There we'll do a little bit of kind of motivational stuff, some team building, and everybody kind of reports in so that group is all on the same page. This is what's coming. This is where we were. This
Problems
is
we're having, wins we're having.
Then from there they'll go out into their individual departments or locations, and they're gonna have a monthly meeting with their team individually. Now, kind of like structurally, you have the clinical director who's running that office. Then there's an area director who's going to oversee maybe 5 offices, who sat in that clinical director role and was very successful in that role. So they're kind of mentoring those individual clinical directors. Then the chief operations officer is meeting regularly with the area directors. And then then the chief operations officer and myself are meeting regularly. And then at any point, and I'm still treating patients, which I think I love. It's why I got into it.
But you do it when you want to do it now.
Well, sometimes when we're stretched.
Out of necessity.
Like right now, we're stretched a little bit. We've been extremely busy. We went from extremely slow during the heat of COVID to extremely busy, and there's just not enough professionals that we've been able to add yet. So
yeah, hiring struggle for everybody.
Everyone's having the same problem. So, but it keeps me connected to the team too.
Yeah, keeps your finger on the pulse.
And and
Pops didn't stop grinding knives.
No, he was still in there. He loved it. That's true.
Don't. Pops was always in there for a reason.
Work is the joy of life.
Yeah, work is the joy of life. I want to drill down a little bit more on like the softwares, right? You're giving us the hierarchy, and that is super helpful. But like, what are some of the things that you guys are? And it doesn't even have to be specific to your industry, but what are some of the things that you guys are utilizing to communicate?
Microsoft Teams.
Teams
is the platform that we communicate through and hold a lot of our meetings. WebPT is industry specific to us, but that's our electronic medical record.
So is there something you could drop down on? Let's just say you want to see what the Monroe location did today. You have the ability to dive in there.
Yeah.
So we run an operations budget. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's a pretty advanced Excel spreadsheet. We run one of those for every clinic, right? And that sets targets. We set that in the beginning of the year, and it sets all of our operational targets, right? It says what our goals are for visits, new patients, our staffing metrics, our productivity, how busy or not busy we want the therapists to be, so they can provide a good product for the patients, so they can bill appropriately, so we can get paid appropriately.
Yeah, you're critically thinking about a lot of different things.
So we have our operations budgets, right? And they roll up. They kind of all tie into a roll up that shows all the clinics, targets versus actual versus budget, right? That's on the operational side. And we also have a financial budget, which is a budget versus actual for each of P&L
built
for each
off
of the locations.
operations budgets.
And they all kind of tie together. And we look at that every week. That's released every week for all the directors to see, so they can see how they're performing towards their budget. And then we look at the profit and loss on a monthly basis. We close out every month, and we run a separate profit and loss statement for every single location.
Yeah. Are they all separate LLCs, or
No.
we have them all in one LLC?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever thought about doing it all as separate LLCs?
Well, we do have one partnership with a hospital system in one, soon to be 3 of our locations. where we're partnered up with the hospital.
So that's a separate LLC.
It runs as an Atlantic Physical Therapy, but it's also a partnership with the
Yeah,
hospital.
doing what DBA has. I'm just curious, a lot of times, just segregate it just for liability purposes. A lot of guys in real estate do that.
For us, having that one LLC is important in our model because that's where the insurance contract resides.
Leverage.
So we use that. That's one contract with the insurance company, right? And
Is it beneficial to have one versus 29?
I was going to say, I'm sure there's workarounds.
There's a workaround,
There's
yeah.
workarounds where you can get a contract and probably have one company manage it and all that. But
Probably adds additional admin.
yeah, that contract sits with the one LLC.
That's interesting.
Also going with the different softwares, our EMRs has kind of solved some of the problems. Like we can study our clinical outcomes. They bought a outcomes,
EMR is called?
electronic medical record. So they bought a company that does outcomes and embedded it within the medical record. So that's easy for us to track our clinical outcomes. And then they have a Reach platform, which is kind of patient engagement.
It's like a CRM.
It sends out, it's automated. So like 2 days after your evaluation is completed, it's automatically going to send you, and we're getting an NPS score from you. Like how likely are you to refer a friend or family member to us?
How are you feeling?
Yeah.
How'd we do?
So we get that feedback on the service side, and we get feedback on the clinical side of how are we doing in getting you better versus the national average of getting people better.
So that's almost like an old school car. I know it's all digital now, but a car mechanic book. You need a transmission that's going to take 12 hours, and this is what it should be billed at. In your world, that's kind of saying, hey, here's the average of how fast or how you should solve this person's clinical issue.
Yeah, so like if you go to us with your upper extremity problem, you're going to get a 68% improvement. If you go to the other places across the nation, on average, you're going to get a 54% improvement. We get that information. That's on the clinical side. But then the NPS score it's kind of a universal scoring system. If you went to TGI Fridays, you came to us, and you'll get asked that same question over and over, and it aggregates the responses. And we know if you give us a 10, you're a promoter. You're out there going, this place is unbelievable. You got to go there. You got to go there. If you give us, a 7 or lower, you're a detractor. You might be like, I don't know about that place. But we're alerted right away up front if you're a detractor.
Now, what will you do to try to get to that person?
So now we're going to connect with the director of the facility where that interaction happened and say, hey, what happened there? Did you have a sense that something didn't go right? And then they or the therapist who was the provider will reach back out to that patient and say, where did we miss the mark? Obviously,
how do I help you?
Yeah, we didn't give you what you were expecting, and how can we, better that? Come on back, let me get you back in here so we can, help you achieve your goals.
See, and the reason I ask these types of questions is because these are the things we don't really think about when we're launching a business.
And we didn't.
Yeah.
Especially when you scale, you start to run into these problems, and then you're like, shit, how do I solve them?
Yeah.
You don't need to solve a problem until you know you have a problem, right? And I think a lot of times these types of things, we don't think about it as revenue producing activities, but they really are for many reasons. Number one, you want to make sure your patient got the right care, right? You guys seem like great dudes. You want to do the right thing by your patient. You need to make money. You're paying all of these people to help the patient.
And then we don't want to burn out our staff either.
Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the metrics we track is that productivity, which says how many patients they're treating per hour. And inevitably, if that number gets too high, then that we're asking that therapist to do too much, and then it's going to ultimately affect the product anyway.
Yeah.
So we actually have gone through a process of making the therapist less busy over time, which has made them happier, which has made the patient happier, and which has allowed us to bill more appropriately and get reimbursed for the services that we
And
provide.
get a better clinical outcome
And get a better
the
outcome.
client,
Yeah.
which is our product.
Which makes
See,
people
but those systems to me, like other people may be like geeking out now watching this at this point, but like that's cool shit. Because in my world, I mean, the systems I have in place, I can't talk much about my finance business. Compliance hates me, but even in this whole system that Evan and I have built, there's an ecosystem. You download our ebook, you get this email sequence that's coming out to you that pitches you over to the coaching, and then I have a metrics and this active campaign that's saying, hey, we saw that you read all these. Why didn't you opt in over here? Or what's going on, similar to your guys' MPS system. And those things are extremely important, even to the small business owner guy who maybe owns a donut shop. May not be the same exact systems or as many needed, but I think those types of back-end things in the small business space are overlooked a lot, and you guys are obviously
and
doing well at it.
You know, to retain the client is a lot less expensive than to acquire the new client, right? So if
You guys track all that too?
how much leakage or
Yeah.
So, and we want our aim, and we charge hard for it, is we want to wow everybody at every interaction, and every interaction is an opportunity to win. So, and it's hard. Hey, listen, life is stressful, and people have good days and bad days, but we got to be able to kind of
adapt, corral.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, and I talk about this with my good friend AJ a lot, and I know you guys know AJ. He's a great dude.
Great guy.
I think a lot of times in the medical space, it's like almost frowned upon. In back circles of MDs I know, and these guys are all business owners. They're owning surgery centers. The cash register's going over here at the cash register. Listen, it's a business. Capitalism, creates the best things on the planet.
Absolutely.
And the U.S. creates the best healthcare system because of your ability to have success. So, kudos to you guys for coming on the show and talking about your systems and talking about wanting to be extremely successful. And what people who maybe would judge in saying that, or the medical professional who's thinking, I can't talk about it, you're not paying attention, because you guys are going to get to the goals you want to get to for you, your family, your employees, through helping your patients really well.
That's it. You nailed it right there.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the interaction between therapists and patient. And if we have that right, the rest of it will take care of itself. But there's a lot that goes into having that interaction right.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
understanding your client. What do they need?
So I want to talk a little bit about revenues. And again, I think for a lot of people, they may hesitate on talking about those things because they don't want people to know what they make and what they do. We've talked about that briefly before. As a medical business, you can only get to your goals if you create good care. And you guys are obviously doing that with 29 locations and adding more. What are the total revenues that you guys are doing currently?
Well, we're hoping to finish this year around 20 million in revenues.
That's amazing.
And we had a little rough start with the whole Omicron thing in January, but that's the goal. Yeah.
And what was your first 5 years?
Oh God. I think at the end of 5 years, maybe we had 3 locations.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 locations. So I don't know. Maybe we were doing $1.5 million or 2 million.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a good amount of growth.
Yeah, it's you know how like your mind stretches, like you hang around with your buddy who's like killing it, and then you're like, wow, like maybe it is possible. He's a clown. Wow, he can do that.
Yeah.
It's like,
you see the guy hammering on bourbon?
Yeah.
That's what people say about me.
Yeah. So yeah, you stretch a little bit, then you stretch a little bit more.
You learn. You make a lot of mistakes.
And we're thieves. We go to the conferences and we talk to all the people from doing what we do. Picking brains and love to be inquisitive and ask questions. I think for a while, certainly for me, I was like, I wouldn't ask the question because I didn't want to reveal what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And now I'll ask the question because I need to know.
You need to know, and guess what? That person on the other end is so excited to tell you.
For 100%.
They're so excited to tell you because people who worked hard, I do it myself. That's why selfishly part of this coaching and this Fireside is for me to tell my story, whether it's to feed my ego in a good way or whatever it is. I want to share, like, dude, I started here as an idiot.
Yep.
I'm still an idiot here, but like, look what I learned along the way.
Totally.
Yeah.
And talk about conferences a little bit. That's another good nugget. I spent my first 7 years in the finance space. Capital One, I think my maximum was like 3,000 at the time, like swiping on the credit card, and the information I would get there easily made me 20 grand a year. So spend 3 to make 20.
Yeah.
Talk about spending money on your education years after college has been done.
Yeah, and we talk about with the younger members on our team, it's like that when you enter the field, you're kind of like safe that you're not going to hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you're going to help somebody.
Yeah.
And so then it's the continuing education you layer on top. But then for us, when we go out to these conferences, and maybe if you're sitting with somebody, and for us anymore, we're an open book. We'll talk to anybody. We'll talk to our competitor down the street and pretty much just talk openly. I don't know, maybe because we're just older and we don't. There's enough to go around.
There's
like
enough to go
everybody's
around,
going to do well.
Most
You're all
people aren't
do
going to
well.
take action either.
No, but like when you go to these conferences, it's such a you're talking to somebody who's doing what you're doing in California. Even if they would tend locally to guard it, they want to give you the information. They want to tell you what they're doing well, and then you can take that information home and act upon it, and you develop relationships, and it's another person to go to when you're struggling with something. Hey, what are you doing with this? And I mean, it's been invaluable to us, the relationships that we've developed across the years.
There's one specific conference we go to every year. It's actually put on by our EMR. We were talking about EMR earlier. It's by the EMR company, and that one, I mean, we go to other conferences too, but
That's a physical therapy business conference.
yeah, it's not specifically
not clinical.
There's some clinical there, but it's business too. And then it's just the people that are there. Like Mike said, we've developed relationships. We have a friend that this guy in Kentucky, Stephen Huntsman. I would love if he was watching this.
He will watch it. Send it to him.
Yeah, we're going to send it to him.
Stephen, fly in. We'll have you on too.
Stephen is our de facto CEO, in case you were wondering.
We need him.
He actually replaced Mike about 7 years ago.
I partied too hard at one of the nights, and he swooped in.
Swooped him in.
But, I mean, we met him, 10 years ago, and he's a great example. And we've watched his success through the years. And he was working for a small PT clinic like ours, 10 years ago. And his clinic was acquired by a bigger company, and he's worked his way up the chain, and now he's the chief compliance officer for a 1,200 clinic practice in the biggest private play outpatient physical therapy practice in the country, Stephen Huntsman. And he's like one of our best friends and somebody that we always look forward to seeing. And
You're able to pick his brain.
Never would have met him.
Never would have
if
met
we
him.
weren't at these conferences.
Yeah, and we pick his brain. He's so interested in what we're doing and how we're doing it and where we're going, and it's just he's just a special person that.
And it's so
we'd have
funny
this, yeah.
at those conferences too. It could be a conversation over bourbon. It's not even
Absolutely.
in the classroom.
More of it happens, I think, outside of
at
the
the
classroom.
bar, because
Yeah.
you're able to sit there and pick the
Yeah.
other people's
Yeah,
brains instead of
absolutely.
the one presenter on stage. I don't care if you're making, moo-moos. I don't care
Yeah.
if you're into candles, finance, healthcare, whatever it may be. People need to go and get around other professionals. Yeah, and
Develop
build relationships.
And if you can help someone in the industry, well, then they say the rising tide lifts all boats.
100%.
That's the way it's always been for us. It's like if we can help other people, then that's awesome. I just met so our Jackson office is one of the offices we're working on right now, and I joined the Jackson Chamber of Commerce. Me and our marketing director, and I was at a breakfast the other day. And it was actually really cool. I met a girl, who's going to be coming to our office on Friday, who just started a home care physical therapy company. Young girl, so passionate, awesome therapist. I could just tell because everything she was saying was everything that these guys say. And we don't do home care therapy. And she just started the company, and she's coming in to meet our call center. We have a call center. And like I said, we don't do home care therapy, and I'm excited to introduce her to our call center girls.
How much do you want to help that girl?
Who get the calls, right? Who get the calls, and people asking, "Do you guys do home care therapy?"
What is the name of her company? Do you know? Do you remember? And I'll put you on the spot.
It's Julie Green. Pyvon or Python.
Julie Green, we're talking about you. We're thinking about you.
Yeah, I'm excited to help her. And I told her, we're an open book. Like, anything we can help you with, we can help you with. We reconnected after the meeting. We texted, and I'm excited to help
That's
her because
awesome.
her passion was just awesome. And I'm excited
You
for
feed
her
off
future.
it.
Yeah, totally.
It's almost like some energy pumped back into you because you remember being in that position.
Yeah.
Talk about your call center. We didn't talk about that before. How large is the call center, and what does?
So call center is actually 2 full-time employees, and what they do is we have like new patients. We have a new patient hotline. So a new patient calls in, and say you live in Bayhead.
Point Pleasant.
Point Pleasant. But say the call comes in, and you call the call center, and you want to get into our Route 88 office, 2 miles down the street. You would call in. Tam or Sydney, awesome girls. They would do the intake. They would set you up. If say for instance, that brick office didn't have an availability within 5 hours, and you had you had something acute, your back was all jammed up. Well, then what they would do is they would try and coordinate you and say, okay, well, our wall office is 10 minutes away. Why don't you go to the wall office because we have an opening there, and then they'll take all of your information, get you queued up. Have you set up, so then basically you just show up at the wall office, and the wall office manager will greet you, and everything's ready to go.
Again another
Customer service.
Yeah, another customer service piece as you grow that you probably ran into that problem. Like, well, the manager's already their plate is full.
Well, we want that person sitting at the front desk to receive you more on a concierge kind of level, and if they're on the phone with the insurance company, like verifying benefits and trying to schedule you, and
they hate life.
So there was a calculation on how much time is being spent on getting those benefits, and
how did you do that calculation?
On your side of the business, like,
well, we just kind of tested out, and we said, how long does it take to take the call from the patient, right, and call on the insurance?
Were you sitting there with a timer? Stopwatch, coach?
Pretty much, coach. So we had a really good idea of what the average time it was to take that call and to get the benefits and set up that patient. So we said, okay, well, we're doing X many new patients per week, and we said, okay, well, in a 40-hour week, if we have 2 people that are doing it, then we think we can cover the need, right? And we dedicated the call center.
You always have to create the need. It's like, are we covering a need? Is it going to be beneficial?
And it's working backwards, right? We knew what the new patient volume was coming in, and we said, okay, well, let's start here. How long is it going to take for each of those new patients to get booked? Okay.
Did you do a calculation on how much you were losing because there wasn't a call center, of maybe your office managers not being able to get to the calls?
Well,
it's probably hard to really track, but
it's hard to track. But one of the things was we knew that there were times when calls weren't coming in,
we weren't getting to the
or we weren't getting to the calls, or we get a voicemail, right? And the voicemail
2 weeks later,
and we get the voicemail that day, but we call. What's happening is the patient's calling
on a list,
and they call option number 1, and if they get the voicemail, then what do? They call option number 2, and we may get that voicemail 10 minutes later. We call that patient back, and they say, well, I scheduled somewhere else because you didn't answer.
Yeah.
So we were like,
So
okay,
true.
we need to address this issue.
and the call center is backed up by the way the phone system is set up. We've kind of potted the local offices, so if that call is ringing in from Brick to the call center, and the call center is tied up and they're not able to get to it, it's ringing back to Brick and also over there in Manasquan and Wall.
Wait, hold on. So they're geographically knowing they're in Brick, or they're calling Brick location?
The patient might call Brick. They may call the call center hotline number,
But then
or
they call
might
Brick,
call
it gets
Brick.
kicked to the call center.
Well, they'll have an option. It's like if you're a new patient looking to schedule an evaluation, press 1. If you're an existing patient just for a follow-up appointment, hold the line and it'll ring.
And then the phone system tells the call center as the call comes in. The phone system says, "This
Where
is
they're
a
coming
this is a
from.
Brick caller
Yeah.
coming in." So now the call center answers, and they know that it's someone that wants to schedule for Brick. Hey, how you doing, Ryan?
Is that because they called the Brick office? Or is that because it knows the geographic tag?
the call initially, if the call initially went to the Brick office and they press 1
Got it.
for the new patient
it identifies
scheduling,
it,
it identifies it.
I'll say that'd be really sharp.
Yeah, right.
Damn, they
Big
know where
brother.
they're
Yeah.
calling
Big brother.
from.
Yeah.
They already know. They do know.
But all of our phones between all the offices are they're all in the cloud, right? So it's a cloud-based phone system. And so we have 3-digit extensions for all the offices. The nice thing about the call center is we have Tam,
Tam's the best.
awesome girl, was a rock star office manager. This was an opportunity for her to move up, right? And that's the other thing about the company growing, and I'll get back to Tam in a sec.
I
The
do
company
want to talk
growing has
about that.
provided a lot of opportunities for other people to elevate and to get better opportunities within the company, right?
If you haven't watched the podcast with Matt Catania and his explaining of the Jersey Mike system and doing that exact thing is promoting within.
That's been the
mean-
motivation. The motivation for growth is opportunity for the awesome.
If
members
you're
of the
helping
team.
that person down your totem pole make more money, guess what? You're making more money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. And if you came to our headquarters and you saw
You
our
didn't invite me yet.
after tonight, you burned it tonight. You'd see our whole billing team. Every one of the girls on our billing team was an office manager, right? And they've elevated to the billing team. Our HR director, Nicole, she was an office manager. Our controller, Lisa, was an office manager. We have regional admin directors, office managers. We have our director of aides, right? She was originally an aide, right? I think everybody in our corporate office, Sydney and Tam, in the call center, office managers.
Where is your corporate office?
It's in Wall, but it has a secret address, kind of like you in Point Pleasant. With the
Point
Bay
Pleasant or Bay Head address, or flipped in Bay Head with a pointed address.
Our COO was a staff therapist, then a clinical director, then an area director, and just killed it all the way along. And
It's. I think at some point you're trying to make money, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to make money. We're business owners.
Well, you have to, because otherwise,
you fail.
then we're going to lose employment for 180, 90, 200 people if we don't make money. You know?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But I'm saying even at first, you're trying to make money.
Yeah.
Then you start to build a staff, and then you're like, are these staff doing the right things for us to continue to make money and grow? And then I think there's a mind shift that happens, at least from what I've watched in organizations I've been close to and a part of, and a lot of guys and girls that I've interviewed. It shifts because you know that you're making money, you still want to go to the next level, but you want to bring all these people that have helped you get to where you are.
Yeah, someone reached down and pulled us up, and we want to reach down and pull somebody else up. It's the way
everything.
it is. And that's the reward. And you're right. It's like, so we redesigned our compensation model for the clinical team, and basically, without getting in the weeds, it's like for the clinical director, it's based on their targets that we talked about for their office. But in order for the director to win, every individual staff therapist has to win on their comp model. If they all win on their comp model, that clinical director wins. In order for the area director to win, the only way the area director is going to win is if all of the clinical directors...
It makes everybody get down and on top of the layer below them.
I win if you win. And then if you trace it all the way back, the COO is on the same exact model. The only way that COO is going to win is if each of those area director wins. And the only way that the company wins is if all
Everyone
of them
wins.
win. You know, so...
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really, a model I think a lot of people get away from, and again, in small business, because, we're running around doing, too many things, and you lose sight of, like, you need to take care of your people. And it is hard to do at times because you are stretched thin, but you guys seem like you're doing a great job with it. Talk about the growth of your business, right? Going back 10 years, let's say you guys are doing $5 to $8 million of revs. How did you have that growth? What were you actually doing? Were you going out and acquiring these people? Were you raising capital? Was it, putting together the money yourself, dealing with banks? Talk a little bit about that for those people who want to scale.
I mean, the joke running for a long time was that, and this is before either of us, but certainly me, figured out how to delegate. It was like, if it was just me, Atlantic, we'd be sitting in Freehold where we started, and that would be it.
So are you admitting that you're a control freak?
Oh, yeah. I was. I was a control freak. If it was just Dave, Atlantic, we'd be in all 50 states and a couple foreign countries. We'd be like
Jersey Mike's.
Dubai physical therapy.
He's writing down Peter's model.
So
You guys are a great combination. Like he's like jokester, sweet talker. You're a super genuine, nice guy, but you can tell your brain ticks a little bit different than his, and great
it
compliment
works.
to each other.
It works. It's always been that way.
Crazy as brothers too.
It works because like I don't mess with what he's doing,
I don't mess with
and
it.
he doesn't mess with what I'm doing. It's really two
and
distinct roles. Right?
And we'll get back. See, my ADD's jumping around. We'll get back to the how you guys scaled, but talk about your wives a little bit. And I like to give the wives some love. I know my wife. You saw her. She's
awesome.
in there. She's ready to pop any minute, and she's got a 2-year-old. As you guys see,
Spider-Man.
jumping from stool to stool. You guys are, your wives are doing that at home with 4 kids and 3 kids. Talk a little bit about their roles in the business.
Don't know how. I'll speak for Lauren. I don't know how she does it. She works too. She's her and her dad have a business that they run, and
What is their business? You guys shop them out.
They engineered air filters. They sell air filters to commercial buildings.
All right.
But
They need to hook up with Jersey State Controls.
yeah.
They're a huge controller. They do a lot of the, it's really like creating the panels and the operations to a lot of these large entities.
So they're calling on the same places that
most likely.
building managers,
Yeah.
chief engineers. Yeah, and she's more patient than anybody I've ever met. Like she's always, and I come home for like in 5 minutes and stuff's just going on.
Ready
It's
to
like
slap
and she's just level and awesome and always been supportive no matter what, and kind of just trust.
Yeah.
All along the way.
It is trust.
It's trust,
Right? Because you're
'Cause
going
it takes a
into-
lot of faith to.
Yeah, you're taking a lot of risk. You got stress.
There's times where it's like, well, you guys are opening up another office? Like, what?
Yeah, what's going on?
Why? Yeah, just
Trying to help your people win.
Yeah, and honestly, as we've grown as individuals and as we've worked on our mindsets, and it's gotten better. There was a time when it was
Rough.
when it was horrible. Like
Yeah.
for me, like I wouldn't wish upon anybody that's working for the company to go through some of those patches that I've gone through, but it helps me. I'm glad I went through them
You
because I'll
learned.
guard against putting someone else through that patch. So, but she was along for the ride through all that.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
never guilted me like with "you're not around here." I guilted myself about it, but she never. She could have layered that on, and it would have crushed me probably. She never did. She was like,
I'm going to get to you in a second, but I
Yeah.
want to talk on that. Because that's something I fear, right? I have been around a lot, but I could see that this is having its own explosion of growth for Evan and I, and my business itself is indirectly benefiting from it, and just more and more time out there. And there's a capital limit on what I want to make and what I want to do in life to create that financial freedom. But I'm like, man, there's a couple older guys, I won't mention their names, that are in their 70s, and they're like, man,
I thought you were talking about us.
No. Older guys meaning like 70 that have been like, I wasn't around enough because I was, so caught up in the business.
I would say guard against it if you can.
Yeah.
You have to, really. I've learned to schedule family time. You're not going to miss an important work appointment, right?
You
won't.
can't.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't.
But you need to schedule time, the family time, almost, and protect it as fiercely, because it's easy because I sleep here, or because I, leave here in the morning, or I come back here at night. It's easy to kind of like cannibalize your time here for like the betterment of the, I'm doing it for us, but like it doesn't feel like us for them.
Yeah.
So
You get home, you're on the phone, you're dealing with emails.
Yeah. So I've scheduled time and blocked it off as if it was
It's work.
like client A1 meeting, and then protect it that way and just be unavailable for whatever comes. And it's time well spent. And so I have a unique perspective from the older clients. I tell the younger workers, like those older clients who are, 90, 88, the closer you get to the end of your journey, whatever your journey is, the more clarity you have.
Yeah, there's no
on the
BS.
they have no BS, and they're looking back and seeing it all for what it is, and they give you like clarity.
Real
and
talk.
If you're doing a service, like you're helping them like with their knee or whatever it is, they want to help you back.
Yeah.
So like they
tell you the truth. They'll
tell
hit you
the
with the truth.
as hard as it needs to hit you, you know,
Yeah.
and they'll tell you, you know, like,
You look like you're shaking over there. We get the fire going.
I'm good.
you know, protect that time as much as you can. And there's, and I talk about this all the time. It's like, for a long time I was frustrating myself thinking like work-life balance. Talk about a work-life balance.
Counterbalance, yeah.
Like we picture it as like this static point, like work and life. That's not it. Like if I tried
it's
to
blended
balance,
too.
it falls and it falls. So there's times when it's going to fall over here. That just tells you at some point you got to fall back over here.
Yeah.
And COVID was like a
Blessing almost.
yeah, well, it was a great example. It fell, like if work was on that side and life was on this side, during COVID, for me personally, for all of us really, we fell deep into the life side, which was amazing. Home every night for dinner, family movies, all that stuff. It was incredible.
I was home
that.
for my son's first year of his life.
And-
working from the
and
bar.
Would you ever give that back? That's
No,
amazing,
it
right?
was, it was cool.
Awesome.
My wife was too. She was
But-
a teacher.
I knew, and it certainly came true.
It had to come back
that
the other way.
It was going to go way over here and pin itself here.
It's like a
But I was-
pendulum.
But I was okay when it went there because I had the perspective of like, hey, listen, I had all that. Whereas like old me, it was like pinned here, and I never knew to even bring it back here. you know,
Yeah, it
like-
gave you that time to slow down
Yeah.
and see that through different lens. Talk about your wife and
Yeah.
family life a little bit.
So there was a time. I know you were calling me coach, but there was a time when I was.
You look like a coach, though.
Well, right now I do because I came from a baseball game.
Exactly, coach.
But no, there was a time when I was coaching basketball at Monsignor Donovan High School, and my firstborn, my daughter Marley, was born. She's 14 now, and I would leave the house in the morning, I don't know, 5 a.m., go to the gym, work out. At that point in time, our office was in Freehold, or our headquarters. Well, it was, it was a little cubby in the back corner in Freehold. So I would go to Freehold, work all day. Then I would come home. No, I'm sorry, I wouldn't come home. I would work until like 7:30 at night, and then go to basketball practice to coach at Donovan from 7:30 until 9. And I get home 9:30 or 10 o'clock. You know, at the end of practice, talk to the coaches, get home at 9:30 at night. And I was trying to balance. Well, I wasn't balancing anything. I wanted to coach. I loved coaching, but I had to work in this business that was so busy. And unfortunately, Sue, my wife, took the brunt of it. And there was a point when, I don't know, my daughter started talking or something like that, and I was like, oh man, I got to change this.
I missed it. I missed something.
I missed something, or my second daughter was born, and Marley was only 2 at that point, or something like that, and Sue was so good about it, and so supportive. But I kind of think that she sacrificed for the betterment of like
The
a
family.
lot of the spouses in our company, whether it's a husband or a wife, because we learned from that, right? And we were pop mentality, right?
Yeah.
Just work. But at some point it changed, and we started working on this work-life balance. And Sue, for me, was the guiding light on that, and taught me that. And although she took the brunt of it too, I appreciate that she did that. But we also talked through that, and she helped me understand that. And now our employees, they're not getting the grind like we had the grind because of people like Sue. And
Do you ever have the wives come in and drop down and talk a little bit of the wives' role? My ex-partner, he retired, Jim Ortenzo, he's a very sharp guy. He would put together a breakfast for the wives of the firm, and they would talk to them about numbers and targets and what you're doing,
Pretty cool.
and how much your support of, hey, it may be a late night out with the boys, or an early Saturday round of golf, or whatever it may be to get the job done. He would talk about what we were doing, and it really I think brought the wives in and make them feel a part of it, and it wasn't fake. It was real. Like, hey, we know that you're pissed that they're out, working and you're at home with the kids, but
It's almost like a support group.
yeah,
It's a great idea.
Yeah, it really was. So, shout out to Jim.
We actually just, this new business line we're working on, this functional capacity evaluation company.
Really interesting. We were talking about that before.
Well, I'd like to get into that a little bit just because of my wife. So this company, we took over this company called Kinematic Consultants. This guy, Bob Wainwright.
Right here in Point.
Right here in Point, has been doing, it's called Kinematic Consultants. It's a functional capacity evaluation company.
Explain that a little bit.
In layman's terms, a functional capacity evaluation is like a lie detector for injuries, right? Mostly in the workers' comp field. So somebody gets hurt on the job, they can't work because of the injury. It's getting to that point where they're supposed to come back to work. Mm-hmm. Maybe that person, maybe not, says they're not ready to come back to work.
Pool looks good.
Or they want to prove, right.
Beers look cold.
Right. Or some people want to prove that they're ready to come back to work. So it's on both sides of it. This company, it's really cool. It has some really cool technology. It's all motion capture analysis. So it captures motion, and then there's all these algorithms that run on the motion that say whether, you do 30-second increments of motion, and if that motion deviates by more than 10% in these 30-second increments, and there's a bunch of movements that you get put through.
Who creates those metrics from that? Does that come down from this? I don't know if it's the CDC. I'm not a medical professional, but like.
No, this software, it's biomechanical movement software, bioanalysis software, where they put nodes on the body. Anyway, it was developed by this awesome scientist, this guy Gideon Ariel. He's a world-renowned creator. He created universal gyms. He created the first Olympic training center. He worked with NASA. I mean, the guy's amazing. He lives in California.
Sounds crazy intelligent.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Older gentleman. He's about 82 years old. But my family and I, we were on Easter break. We were in California and visiting my wife's sister. And my wife and I had breakfast with Gideon Ariel, who lives in California.
Awesome.
Him and his wife.
Did you track him down after?
No, Gideon and Bob, who we just recently partnered up with. Bob and Gideon are best friends. So Bob connected us. We knew we were going out there. We had breakfast with him, and it was so cool to have my wife with me because she was just enthralled in this guy. And he actually had a book. He gave us the book, and she was reading it on vacation. And she is so like dialed in now. And and as our kids are getting older, she's getting more time.
She's getting interested.
So she's getting interested, and it's like and she's definitely put in her time to allow me to do things, but she's like so engaged in this, and my goal is to bring her into this and let her learn about the technology. And
that's cool.
See if there's a way that she could help, even come to meetings or seminars and things like that, so she can learn about it and help us promote it. She was a pharmaceutical rep before kids, and
I'm sure she can.
Outgoing and bubbly.
She can sell.
She can
You
sell
buy
to
anything she's selling.
Yeah. She's awesome.
Some people are natural set.
Yeah.
You should just drill down on
so
that.
it's an exciting opportunity because she's excited, and when she gets excited about something, she's into it.
Yeah, let her run with it.
So this I see this as an opportunity to kind of give back to her.
It's cool to hear you say that because I think about that for my wife, Kelly. She's super intelligent. She's a math mind. She's the type of person that will drive through New York City and could quickly count the glass panes on the high rises. She's very intelligent. Right. Master's in math and special ed. And number one, she's like my editor of the podcast descriptions. If it's not Evan, I don't write well. I don't spell well. Things I bounce off her all the time. It's kind of an unpaid position, right? But it's super valuable, and I'd love to see her be a part of my business. So it's cool to hear you say that.
I think there's a really good opportunity for her with this, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah. So jumping back, and that's great to hear about your wife. No, I wanted to let the wives get some love, and the growth of your company. How did you guys do that? Was it through acquiring loans, bringing on capital?
Initially, it was just startups, and we funded it internally.
So just open up a new office, coming out of
cash flow supported it, and we just
got
went
it up
that
and
way. Then we made a real small acquisition that we could take care of, and then a bigger acquisition we did with some equity for the person we were acquiring. Then the big changing point, I think, for us, for sure, was my first boss, who I worked for 2.5, 3 years, left on great terms. We had a great relationship. He had transitioned his business, but still held a piece of it. And then the majority partner was looking to sell that business off. And he called us and he said, listen, this is an opportunity. I want my people to be taken care of, and I know you guys will take care of them. And he brought that opportunity to us, and we were able to put that whole thing together. And we didn't take on any debt to do that, right?
You did it again out of like just revs?
Some equity.
Well, we gave up some equity, and what he did was he forgave notes.
To the
He ripped up notes.
person
He
who
took a chance on
acquired him.
us.
So for the people who maybe don't understand, gave up equity, explain that a little bit, what you mean.
Yeah, so instead of going to our pocket and paying cash or going to the bank and getting a loan, we took down our percentage of ownership and offered.
He goes away, retires, but he still collects a paycheck as an owner in a sense.
active, though.
He's been active.
very
He's
active
been
in the
involved
company.
too.
Oh, all right, that's
in the
great,
company,
even better.
yeah, which is even better. And for me, it was like putting the band back together again. You know, it's like he was always a mentor to me, and just a great
And what is his name?
Joe Casino.
Joe Casino.
So his
He
company.
should own a casino. I mean, Joe
All
Casino.
right. I mean, it's a great name. It was Southern Ocean Physical Therapy, and
Down in like Atlantic County.
he
Southern
was
Ocean.
kind of in Ocean
Manahawkin,
County, and a little bit
County,
in
Manahawkin up through
Lacey,
Lakewood.
Toms River, Lakewood.
You guys know Dr. Greg I had on the show?
Dr.
He's
Greg.
a podiatrist.
What's the last name?
I always butcher it, man. He's gonna be mad at me if he watches this
Is
one.
it Atheris?
It's close to Manzo.
Oh.
What's Dr. Greg's last name? Is it Manzo? Mysterio?
Greg, not Walter.
Motzi? Damn it. Find it out.
I don't think we know.
He's got a surgery center down there, him and his brother too. Maybe another great guy you
In
should
what
connect
town?
with. He's down in Atlantic County.
So we're not down that far.
We're not that
No.
far
No.
down there, yeah.
No, all right. He's got a pretty big business down there, but he actually just opened up a
Up here?
coffee shop.
Oh, really?
Started roasting beans, kind of getting tired of being
The
a
place
doctor.
you were just talking about, DB Tree?
No,
No,
port
that's-
coffee. DB Tree and port, they're always
Oh,
the
they're
two I go
competing?
between. Yeah, they're competing for Ryan's business. But him and his wife, she was a director of the new doctors coming in, and he was a podiatrist in that system. And I think Rothman bought him and his brother out to some
Okay,
degree.
yeah.
And he's like, dude, I just want to roast coffee beans. Really, really, really good dude.
Good
You guys
coffee?
should connect just because
Yeah.
the best cold brew around. Sorry, DB Tree, you got a lot of other better things than he does. Mazzata.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Manahawkin.
He was in
too.
Manahawkin.
Yeah. Manahawkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know him. Yeah.
I keep
Good.
saying Atlantic County. I think it's Atlantic. Maybe it's the Atlantic healthcare system.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Atlantic
Yep.
Care.
Atlantic
Down
Care,
there, yeah.
maybe. You deal with him at all?
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great
Great
people.
guy.
We're
Great guy.
right down the street from him in Manahawkin.
Let's do coffee. One
We'll have to go to his coffee place.
one Thursday or Friday. We'll do it early in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll catch Greg. Great dude.
Great soccer player.
Yeah, and a
Really?
good soccer player. Still sliding to the soccer. So you guys were really sitting here and saying, I'm using internal cash flows, and that's also rare too, because a lot of times in your space, what I've discovered is a lot of the VC come in, right, and they're like, hey, your revs are X, I can give you Y. What deterred you guys from going that route?
We've looked at it from every angle, and we always preface the conversation. So private equity is all over our space, all over it.
Big time.
Big
Why?
time. Because they've looked at physical therapy as a fragmented industry, a lot of mom and pop.
Yeah.
They
can
like-
pull it together.
They like the demographics.
Yep.
The aging population.
There's no competition. The fragment creates
Right.
no
so
competition.
now we can acquire. We can
Yeah.
we can invest and acquire. Acquire. That's how they kind of view it. And the population dynamics, and it's a low cost of entry. You can open up a PT office. It's, I don't know, $150,000 as your startup. So they like all that stuff. we looked at it, we take every conversation and we preface the conversation as we are not interested, but we would love to talk to you because we know you're smarter than we are.
We're open-minded. We can learn something.
And we've learned from all of them. And we looked at it deeply as being acquired by a strategic who's already done the deal with private equity and they would tuck us in. We looked at it as us being the platform that a private equity company would back. We looked at it from kind of strategically kind of combining with another similar to us. But every time we looked at it, it's like the factors that we really weigh any opportunity against. Are you the entity or the
Are you in
potential
control
partner?
anymore?
Well, not even
Not
that.
in that,
Not
yeah.
even that. Are you going to enable us to provide better opportunities for our staff while you take care of them as well as we do? That's one. If you check that box, now we're going to continue the conversation. Are you going to enable us to provide a better outcome for our clients? If you check those two boxes, we will doggedly pursue that opportunity, and the finances will take care of themselves. We know that.
Oh, 100%.
But we haven't found that yet. So we'll keep looking. If
Do you
it's out
guys
there,
look to exit it at one point, right? You're building this monstrosity, and again, it's okay. At some point, you've worked hard. Your families are, financially free, and everybody's definition of that is different.
it was interesting. The one time that we really went down the path with the strategic, we weren't looking for it. We weren't at a conference, met some guys, like great relationship. These guys from up in New York, and a little conversation started. We weren't pursuing anything. It was all of a sudden,
Bam, we're just in it.
We're in it.
went to a sporting event with them, hung out with
Yeah,
them.
they played all
Oh,
game.
these guys are cool.
He sucked you right in.
Sucked us right in.
He's got the brewery hat on.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then so we're at this meeting, and the guys are like, they kind of are presenting an offer. Right? I in my mind, we weren't there, and my response was like, we wouldn't even think about it unless you offered the X, which was like in our minds crazy. And then eventually they worked their way around to offering X, which then puts you into this place where you're like, oh my gosh,
shit, we're supposed to do this
Are
now.
we supposed to do this? A lot of soul searching going on at that point, both of us. It was exhausting in that you couldn't stop thinking about it. I want to go work out so I don't think about it. You can't stop thinking about it. What about this is amazing for my family, but what about the employees? Well, how about the patients, And to his credit, the then CEO of that acquiring company, we had a great conversation. I called him and I was like, listen, I'm struggling here. I can't
You're
sleep.
stressing me out.
I can't he goes, okay. And this is great for anybody who's ever sitting in a difficult
This is
decision.
good stuff, yeah.
So shout out to Adam. I love that guy.
Awesome.
Is he still the CEO?
No longer there. He got as the
But
story turns
he's on
out,
to bigger and better.
He's on to bigger and
All
better.
right.
But he got clear.
So he may buy you out
him
in
and
the
the whole
future.
team got clear. So Adam tells me, he says, hey, listen, you're making this all woe is me. This is so heavy. It's such a difficult decision. He's like, I know it is. I sat in your seat 5 years ago. He's like, hit the pause button for a second. Reframe the decision. He's like, 99% of the population would give anything to have the opportunity to make this decision. It's not a bad thing. There's no bad outcome here. You say yes, it's great. You say no, it's still great.
Yeah, no big deal.
So but don't think of it as a bad thing. Think of it as a great thing.
Well, when you care about your people, your patients, right? And I've talked about this all the time, PPP. People, process,
Yeah.
product. People are so important in your lives that have helped you guys obtain what you have.
Yeah.
You start to feel like,
If
am
it
I a
was good-
dirtbag? Am I
yeah.
doing the wrong thing?
Yeah.
If it was good for us and bad for them, I don't care how much money. It would have felt like blood money. I would want to vomit every time something bad happened to them.
Yeah, that's who I am.
So the way that he helped me reframe it, I was like, oh my God. He's like, this is not a bad thing. It's a great thing.
It means you're doing
Just
something
think
right.
of it that way. So we hung up the phone, and in a second, I had instant clarity. We're not doing the deal.
He didn't know he talked him out of the deal.
He talked me right out of the deal.
Yeah.
But just reframing the decision into oh my God, this is amazing. What an amazing opportunity. we're not doing this. Whereas up until that moment for 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many days, it was, couldn't find clarity on the decision. It turned out to be the right decision in that Adam and his whole team, by the private equity group, they cleared them all out, like within 2 months. They were gone. So the people that we would have been anchoring to, that we loved.
They might have been reaching for you to save them.
Who knows?
You don't know.
Could be, yeah. We were the deal.
Yeah.
You know,
But
who
we've
knows,
said
yeah.
no, and those are the reasons why we've said no.
Yeah, that's a great story, and that's awesome nuggets.
I got another great one because he's talking about our people. One of the really valued members on my team, right, came to me yesterday, and she told me, she's 10 years younger than me, so she's 34. When she came on, when she was part of that deal Mike was talking about from his old boss that we brought together, so that was 2013. So she's 34 minus, what is that? She was 25 when she came on with us, right? She just paid off all her college loans.
It's awesome.
And, she's really sharp. She owns a house. She bought a house, and all this has happened in the time that I've known her. And she got her master's at Monmouth.
It's fun to celebrate your people.
Yeah.
But she's a bulldog, awesome girl. And she told me, I just finished paying off my college loans, and she just cleared up free cash flow. She attacked them for the time that I've known her, because
And that's a
nobody
sucky
paid
thing
for
to attack.
Yeah.
nobody paid for her masters. Right? She did it herself, and then she's paid off all her loans and attacked them. And so now she's off and running, and it was just so cool to hear.
That
we
is.
were high-fiving in the office because of that.
Listen,
Really cool.
you're providing this job for these people. That's something in her life that she'll remember forever. Finish paying those stupid college loans that
to
suck.
free up those loan payments.
Probably
that she was
$1,400,
attacking.
$1,500 a month, if
Yeah.
not more.
Yeah.
And if she wasn't, it was more than that. If she wasn't attacking them the way they were, she'd probably still have them for 10 more years.
Yeah.
And now she's free and clear, and she's off to the races now.
And you guys helped her do that.
Well, she did it.
And
She earned it.
She got her education. She proved herself. She's ascended to a level where
Yeah.
she's unbelievable, really.
It's great. Well, listen, I like to tie this up and
Yeah.
and ask two main questions at the end. The first one is for each of you. What is one thing you would tell a young business owner that's starting anything today? It doesn't have to be in your industry.
Let you go first.
I would say, listen, the golden rule that we all learn, it's treat everybody the way you want to be treated. If you do that, you're getting there. And it's easy to say, sometimes it's hard to do.
Very hard to do.
If you do that, you're going to win at whatever you're doing. Don't be afraid to work hard. Sometimes you got to work excessively hard, and
Beat yourself down, question hard,
yeah, crazy hard.
stressed out.
But make sure that you schedule time for yourself, because if you burn yourself out, then whether it's the client that you're trying to service,
Or your family.
or it's your family, or it's your team, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. So you have to kind of the best time spent is building yourself up so that you can be better for all of those people who rely on you.
And I've talked about this a few times, so for people who haven't heard me say it that may see this episode, sometimes I believe in sprints and counterbalance. If you read the book and you're doing this,
Yeah.
it reminded me of the book called The One Thing.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it, great book. And my wife and I love the mountains. We love to shoot up to out west to Colorado or just up to the Catskills or Vermont. Especially in the wintertime. And I just get clarity up there.
Yeah.
I get back to a little bit of zen, spend time with my wife, or now it'll be my family.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's so important to me because I get to a phase where I'm at edge.
Yep.
There's nothing you can say to me that's going to calm me down. I've just been running, and I've learned over the years when I'm getting to that point.
You see your own trigger.
Yeah, it's a pattern.
Yeah.
If the pattern is like, let me correct this pattern.
Yep.
Let me not fall back into it. What about you? Give us one or two things.
So I would say, well, obviously what Mike said, right? But I would also say, like, set your targets and track your progress toward that target,
Yeah, it's so important.
right? Because if you have a target, whether it's here or here, wherever your target is, if you're not tracking your progress toward that target, you're not going to know where you are on your path to it. So set that target and make sure you track it and check in with yourself and see where you are, and I guarantee you're going to get to that target.
Talk about like something basic for a young business owner. You know, how would they set it up? Would it be a basic Excel sheet? Would it be, something you can do on an app?
I guess it depends on the business, right? But it could be a revenue target. It could be, in our business early on, we had a visit target that we set. Yeah,
Visits and evals.
visits and evals. So evals drive visits, right?
We called it the gravy train. And so, like, if we hit that number of evals or that number of visits,
It's going to lead to X amount of.
everyone would get a bonus, whoever was working in the office. And we just had, it was a sticky note that was on the wall. And it's like, okay, we hit that. If we beat that, it's a gravy train for everybody. If we hit that again and we beat it, so I believe in, like, also write it down. Just write it down, put it out there,
Yeah.
set it, write it, talk about it,
And
I was going to say, whatever your mechanism of tracking
is.
your metrics, that's your target, right?
Yeah.
Set that target and reach for it. Make it something that you don't think is going to happen. We did that. I forget. It was right when our COO had started with us. We set this crazy target. We had a girl that was working for us that had previously worked for Carnival Cruise Lines, and we were like, we're setting this visit target out here, and if we hit it, we're all going on a cruise.
You stuck your foot in your mouth, didn't you?
They got me at Leggett's one night, and that's when I was like, "Yeah, we'll go on a cruise, yeah." And it was like a reach, a total reach. It was never
And
going
we
to
hit
happen.
it. It was
And
like,
all of a sudden,
oh shit, we hit it.
Where'd you go on the cruise?
It was a cruise to nowhere.
from Miami to
to,
the
like,
Bahamas to
Bahamas
and then
is
back.
beautiful, though.
Oh, it was
Atlantis. We were at Atlantis.
It was awesome.
Bahamas is beautiful.
It was a good party. Good party.
I'm
cruise.
doing my ADD, but it just popped back in my head, and we talked about it earlier. I want to talk about leverage. So you guys had talked about the in-network stuff, and when you're going in network, for people who don't know the medical field, is you're essentially getting paid less versus out of network, and it's what's the percentage?
It's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, what's the percentage probably difference? So say AJ versus you guys on a
Let's say
chiropractic patient or PT.
street rate to out of network rates, probably you're getting a third in network, maybe a half.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
In that range.
Yeah.
40,
Depends.
40%, 50%.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Most patients are like, wait, but if you're in their network and they know who you are, why would they pay you less? I'm like, exactly, but that's the way it is. So we decided long ago in the beginning that we're gonna play the long game. We'd rather be in network. It's easier for the client and for whatever reason. Proved ourselves, grow. As we grew, we represented a bigger population that we were serving. Go back to the payer and say, hey, we want to stay in your network, but we can't do it for this price anymore. Whereas in the beginning, it was like year by year, we'd get
This is what you get.
We'd get 2 letters from Aetna. One as when we had them as our health insurance provider for us and our employees, and one as a provider in their network. And it would be like, it's going to cost you more to provide these health benefits for your patients. And then the other letter would be like, we're paying you less. Like, what the, So, and we would have to accept it because we'd say, we can't do it for that. And they would say, well, then you can't be in our network.
Yeah.
And we were scared to go out of the network. So kudos to those who, did it the other way. But we played the long game. As we got a bigger voice, we were able to negotiate contracts.
More leverage on them.
Proved our outcomes.
The other part of that, though, Mike just hit it. Like, we track our data, right? So we have our outcomes, and we say we are getting people better, right? So here's the general PT clinics, and here's where we are. We're outperforming,
And we do it in fewer visits.
right? So for that reason, and by the way, our patients, here's how happy our patients are. So we show them
Because
all
you
the
can see that
data.
patient 10 times versus 3, same dollar amount
Well,
for
No.
the insurance company.
well,
Right. Versus the out of network.
Yeah.
right.
Going there, you go again with tracking in your systems.
It's all data.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
data. Data is important.
Kudos to you guys. That's cool. I just wanted to circle back to that.
Yeah, no, I know we talked about that off
yeah,
air, right?
guys, I really appreciate you coming here.
It's awesome.
Very busy dads, husbands, business owners.
Great spending time with you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
This is going to be watched by especially all my technical guys. We got real technical. Some it's storytelling. You guys were able to give up a lot of your business, secrets per se, and I appreciate that because it will help a lot of people.
It's awesome.
Cheers again.
Pleasure. Cheers.
It's great.
Thank you, brother.
Great
It's great.
conversation.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully, have another beer soon.
Thank you too.
Cheers to Ev.
Yeah, Evan. Yeah.